On today's show, it's a Senators game day. We'll look at what to expect for tonight in St. Louis.
And we bring on our good friend Jack Richardson to take a look at some of the biggest storylines for the Ottawa Senators this season.
This is Brady Tkachuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome! You are locked on to the Ottawa Senators, the only daily podcast covering the Sens. On the outskirts of enemy territory, I'm Ross Levitan, alongside Brandon Piller up in the Blue Mountains. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Head to FanDuel to get started. Today is Thursday, October 2nd, and Pillsy, we are watching the players head out on the ice right now for the morning skates. We'll bring you game day updates in a moment, but to put a bow, or should I say close the trash can on the Montreal game, Hayden, Hodgson, and Nick Cousins have both been fined the maximum allowed by the NHL, and the Habs got nothing for their part in what happened the other night.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm totally surprised. That seemed to be the way at least the officiating in the game went. So it makes sense that off the ice, that's how the penalties are drawn out as well. But poor Cuz just got a little more poor, unfortunately, but nothing too crazy. The major fines are kind of funny in the NHL. Like, that is a small dent in these players' accounts. Although for those two guys, it means a lot more than some of the big boys.
Yeah, and you always wonder, like, are the teams paying that or are the players paying it? Anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, these ones might be on the players this time. I don't know if they're getting chip-ins from anyone else.
So yesterday, midday, we got a note from the Senators PR saying that the team has called up Tyler Boucher, Jorian Donovan, Oscar Pettersson, Xavier Bourgault, Tomas Hamara, Kian Washkirk, and Scott Harrington, who is now at Belleville Sens training camp. He's a veteran of a number of NHL games, but was not at Sens camp, was actually at another team's camp. I can't remember which one right now, but he's going to get a look now with the Ottawa Senators. Hunter Shepard also called up, and immediately Habs Twitter goes, is this for Saturday? They're not going to dress anybody, but it looks like it's likely for tonight's game in St. Louis.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it. I've made my opinion clear. I think both Habs and Sens should just ice complete non-NHL rosters for that Saturday's game, because it's going to turn into another gong show, and the Habs players are going to want to get their pound of flesh after that Nick Cousins Demidov slash. I don't know. I think you should use this game up against St. Louis as your NHL tune-up, but that's not the way it's looking. And get ready for another absolutely wild game on Saturday where probably little actual hockey is going to be played.
Oh, come on. Give me a little hockey. Can I at least get a 5-on-5 goal for the Ottawa Senators?
Let's start with any type of goal after a 5-0 loss last game.
The lines are out. We'll get to them in a moment, but we want to get to our good friend, Jack Richardson. And this is a precursor to the postcast. It's coming soon. Jack, Martian, great friends of the show. They help us out big time with the postcast. And Jack came on for a Ring of Honor, but he's got some takes that he needs to get off his chest. So without further ado, Jack Richardson, what's up, buddy? How are you?
How's it going, boys? I'm happy to be here. Happy to be joining the show. Excited. It's October. It's cold out again. Hockey's around the corner. And I'm fired up. I'm happy to be joining today to talk some Sens.
That was your first Sens Habs experience since moving to Montreal. How's life been the last 48 hours?
Do you know what? I've avoided the coworkers I have now that I know are diehard Habs fans for sure. I haven't had a conversation yet, and rightfully so. It's preseason, but we will see when the season starts, because I don't think it's going to be that easy. But I mean, I don't even know where to begin. I mean, it wasn't in Montreal. The one on Saturday is. I checked out tickets just to see, because you never know. Not worth the price of admission, I don't think. It's pretty expensive here. So I miss those prices at the CTC for some of those games.
Yeah, definitely. That's fair. Now, how much stock do you take into preseason, Jack? Like, are you really looking at this and making major adjustments in your expectations of the team or certain players based on how they play, or is it just kind of a hey, it's preseason, let's figure it out in the regular season?
I think it's a healthy mix of both, Pilsy, because you don't want to assume that it doesn't matter. It does matter. And guys change year over year and maybe they come in looking a bit different, looking a bit faster. So I think you key in more on individual guys more so than the team. Like I think Linus Olmark's a good example. His first preseason game, he was terrible against Toronto and then gets a 14 save shutout. I'm not going to say that he's back and he's going to be a Vezina candidate this season, but you could see obviously he's working out the kinks, getting back in the flow. And I think a lot of guys are like that. The only thing I put stock into in that game on Tuesday against Montreal is kind of the scrums. I think I really didn't like a few things I saw because some of that was, letting your guys get taken advantage of, like Yakemchuk with Fleury and Jack. I just didn't like the way that the guys on the ice responded to that. Preseason or not, that's not one where, you're going to cost your team in any way. I feel like you got to jump in at some point. So that's the only thing I take stock into really. But in terms of team play, not necessarily, but definitely individual guys. And I think that does tie into like 5-on-5 finishing, which is a huge storyline for the Sens this year. You can kind of look, hey, are things changing? Is Zetterlund going to be able to help the 5-on-5 scoring in a full season? Is Timmy going to be able to figure it out? Like things like that, I think you could start to key in on maybe in preseason, but nothing more than that.
Well, we didn't get to see a lot of 5-on-5 time in that game up against the Habs, as we all know. But one thing we did get to see a lot of was the PK, and PK did not look great. Is that something that concerns you, or what changes would you like to see be made on the penalty kill?
A change, something, because
Yeah,
it looks like they're doing the exact same thing as
Yep.
last season. So some kind of change would be good. Like the strategy of letting the other team's best player just stick handle and figure out a passing lane doesn't work in today's NHL. It's so obvious. And they, I think against the Leafs in the playoffs, their power play was a bit different. It was a bit of a buzzsaw, kind of a lot of ways to beat you. But for the most part, last season, their PK struggled when they let the guy literally walk in. Yep. And when a guy like Ivan Demidov is given that much time with the puck, it's pretty clear now that this kid's special and he made a nice play and it hurt them. So I think they just got to change their aggression because they're a good defensive team. They really are, like at their core now with Travis Green. It doesn't make sense that the PK is so passive and so easy to beat when they're at 5-on-5. They're good defensively. It just feels like a bit of a weird switch. So I'd like to see something change. Hopefully they do mid-season because there's a bit more pressure on the coaching staff this season than there was last year, just like there is on every player.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see if there are adjustments made. I'm not going so far as saying there will, because the PK was not great last year for long stretches, but the diamond stays forever. Jack, what's the biggest storyline that you're following here through training camp?
I think just the 5-on-5 play and maybe the lines. I think that's a big factor in how they're going to score at 5-on-5 is who's playing with who. Because I think for the first time, hopefully, if everything works out, they won't have a D pairing that's an anchor. All three pairings should be able to produce offensively as well. With when they're healthy, Clevin, Spence, Shabbat, and Jensen, and Sanderson, Zub, like all three of those pairings should be able to produce offense. So, every line should also be expected to do the same. So I think what they end up with on opening night line combo wise is going to be pretty telling. I really didn't like Perron, Cousins, and Zetterlund as a line the other night. So I don't know what they're going to do with that. Batherson's health probably matters too in that, but we've talked about it all summer. One of these forwards is going to play on the fourth line where you might not be a fourth line guy, whether it's Giroux, Zetterlund, Perron. It won't be Batherson, but you know what I mean? All those right shot guys that are kind of fighting for 5 spots or whatever it is in the top 9 or Amadio. So I think the line combos is what I'm focusing in on the most because they need to figure out how to score goals at 5-on-5. And I think getting the right combos is the best way to do that, and finding a line that works, letting the other pieces fall into place.
Only 2 more preseason games, thankfully. And we've got lineup notes, and there are some interesting ones for what to expect. We'll get into those storylines. Plus, Jack's X Factor, no spoilers, but he thinks one of the stars needs to explode offensively. That's coming up next. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NFL season is here. Week 5 kicks off tonight, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for every kickoff with a can't-miss offer. If you haven't joined FanDuel yet, no worries. Right now is a great time to join because new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love FanDuel. Ross loves FanDuel. Jack loves FanDuel, and you should too because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, they got them. Same game parlays, so many different options you can put together, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. And if you're interested in Thursday night football, it's a big division matchup between the 49ers and Rams. Rams are minus 480 favorites, plus 370 for the 49ers, and the spread is at 7.5. So if you want to get in on the action, do it with FanDuel. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Thursdays, Sundays, and Mondays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
Today's episode is also brought to you by Farm to Fork. If you're a fan of premium locally farmed meats that are delivered straight to your door, got some great news. Farm to Fork makes it easy to get high-quality steaks, air-chilled chicken, wild-caught seafood, and more, all with no antibiotics or hormones or GMOs. Plus, everything is individually flash frozen and packaged for your convenience. Farm to Fork's meats, they're top-notch. Every time I can get my hands on one of those juicy steaks, I go right into it. Their chicken, air-chilled, it's fresher, more flavorful than what you get at the store. And don't get me started on that wild-caught seafood. I had their scallops recently. Unbelievable, fresh, clean, and full of flavor. They're delivering all across Ontario and Western Quebec. The best part is that delivery's free with a minimum order of $199. You don't even have to leave the house to get this quality. We've got a special code just for you, Derek. Such a beauty at Farm to Fork. You can use LOCKEDON40 as the promo code to get $40 off your first order at Farm to Fork. So visit farm2forkdelivery.ca. That's the number 2, farm2forkdelivery.ca, and start stocking up on the best meats around. You can also visit them at 1570 Carling Avenue and go say what up, and that Locked On Senators sent you. Farm to Fork, delicious locally farmed meats that are delivered straight to your door. All right, Pilsy and Jack, we got lineups for tonight's game. The Ottawa Senators taking on the St. Louis Blues, and thankfully, it's a non-divisional matchup. I know that the travel's not ideal, going the same day, a time zone over, but if it gets rid of some of the stupidity that we saw the other night, I'm all for it, because at the end of the day, there's still decisions to be made on this roster, especially if Drake Batherson's not ready, if Lars Eller's not ready, if Tyler Kleven's not ready, and Nick Jensen. That's 4 regulars that still have question marks, and they can say whatever they want about Lars Eller and Tyler Kleven being close. Fact of the matter is that they're not in tonight's game, and Lars Eller hasn't played a game in an Ottawa Senators jersey yet. And I don't want to say I'm worried necessarily, but you're starting to have to look at other options, and the Senators are doing just that tonight. According to the lineup rushes at the morning skate, Tim Stützle will play with Brady Tkachuk, and Fabian Zetterlund is going to get a look on that line. No surprise that Brady's playing in this game. It's a hometown game for him. Then we've got Stephen Halliday at center between Ridley Gregg and Ole Lycksell. Oscar Pettersson is centering Kian Washkrek and Zach McEwen. The fourth line, Jan Yannick with Arthur Kaliev and Tyler Boucher. On defense, Donovan Sabrango with Jordan Spence. Jorian Donovan with Nicholas Matinpalo. Lassie Thompson is playing with Carter Yakemchuk tonight. And it looks like Mad Sogard will get the start in goal. I would imagine he plays the entire game, right? You had Linus Ullmark play the full game. Then you had Levi Merilainen play the full game. It would make sense for Mads to get his opportunity tonight. Pilsy, this is the first time you're seeing the lineup. What are your thoughts and what stands out?
Well, I count 7 different storyline pointers here. So I won't take all of them. I'll let Jack touch on a few, but
Hey,
a
seven
big one,
horse. 7 horse.
7 stallion. Yeah, perfect. The big one that I'll mention right off the top, I think this clearly points to the fact that Lixell has the edge on that fourth line winger job. Like Lixell is playing with Greg and Halliday, like you mentioned, no Lars Eller. So that fourth line center could be up for Halliday. So it looks like those two are leading the charge there. And then Kaliev is all the way down on that fourth line with Yannick and Boucher. I would say that kind of puts the writing on the wall for him personally. And then on defense, I'll look at Sabrango and Spence. That looks like Tyler Kleven might not be ready for the regular season. We hope he is, but that would be your third pair in the NHL if Kleven's not ready. So that's interesting. And I'll let Jack point out a couple other things that he notes. And if he misses any, I'll touch on them.
I bet you will.
Yeah, I mean, the first one that stands out to me is the top line. This is the top line. Like, I think other than that, it's a pretty vanilla lineup from the Sens, like you mentioned, Ross, with the call-ups yesterday. I think this is a good show for them because I'm expecting offense out of that top line. I don't know who St. Louis is dressing, probably a bit more NHL guys, but it shouldn't matter. This is your top line. This is it. And this kind of goes into the talking about Stützle and Tkachuk and needing to take the next step, which we will get into. But I want to see something from this top line tonight. I think that's realistic to expect. And I like that you mentioned Sabrango too, Pilsy. I'm just going to touch on that. I think he's got the inside track if Kleven's not going to be ready to start the season. Which good for him, man. I like Sabrango. He was good when he played last year. I remember his first game, I think, was against the Capitals, who are the best team in the league at the time. And he played well in that. Remember, it was that 1-0 overtime game, I think.
Yep.
And I've liked him. He's had a good camp. Like he's earned it and a good local boy. So I'm happy for Donovan Sabrango. I hope he can, you don't want him to get games because it means Kleven's out. But if he can show what he can do a little bit, I think that's not a downgrade as much as it might feel with Kleven out. So I like that. I like him with Spence. And then obviously Sogard. Sogard's this is a big game for him also. Like he needs to play well. So there's some storylines, like you mentioned, Pilsy. There's some things to follow for the Sens here, but yeah,
I'll say this is the biggest game of Matt Sogard's career.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, you know what's crazy? Like you say, oh, he's going to play the full game, but how many times has he been pulled when he's played for the Sens, right? Like he just hasn't played a full game like when he started, I feel like, or hasn't played well. So he needs a good game. But yeah, I'm definitely expecting some offense out of the top line tonight at 5-on-5.
I'm curious to see Carter Yakemchuk in more of a depth role. I would imagine that that's the Senators brass saying, okay, we've seen what you can do with Shabbat and Sanderson, where you know that the guy next to you is going to have your back at all times. Now, no disrespect to Lassie Thompson, but if you're talking to Carter Yakemchuk tonight, control your pair. Like be the guy on your pair and allow Lassie to play better because of you. Like make the players around you better rather than rely on the guys who we know always make the guys who are with them better. And on that note, I think it's interesting to note that against New Jersey and now again tonight, Lassie Thompson is moving over to his offside. So he's played on the left side now in back-to-back games. Could that be a depth option that they look at? Because right now, and what a change it's been from years past, there's more depth on the right side with Matt and Paolo, Spence, Yakemchuk, Thompson, all in camp, all righties. So interesting that they think that Lassie is the best option right now to at least get reps on the left side. So I'll be watching for that pair in particular. Up front, I feel bad. Let me apologize, Kian. I don't know your number. And I hope he shuts me up tonight and plays well. He's the one guy that's on a PTO/AHL only contract. And he was also one of the guys at camp who didn't get a game before getting sent down. So this will be Kian Washkarak's first game. And I do find it a little interesting that, and he was with Belleville last year on an AHL only deal too, but that he's getting a game instead of Jamison Reese or Philip Daou, guys who were members of the organization and are now on one-way deals. So to me, that is at least a slight eyebrow lift to see that. But my locked-on player tonight is going to be Stephen Halliday. Pilsy, you pointed out he's got the inside track over Jan Yannick. And I mean, Oscar Pettersson, if you're looking for a depth guy who can play physical, reliable, and smart hockey, like he's not the worst option there. And we've talked a lot about Stephen Halliday disher, scorer, game-winning goal in the New Jersey game. But if he's playing in the spot that's going to be occupied by Lars Eller, that's secondary. How are you going to defend? How are you going to play well in your own zone? How are you going to play off the puck? That's what I'll be watching for tonight from Stephen Halliday. So he'll be my locked-on player. Pillsy, I'll snap it to you for yours.
Yeah, and I want to touch on, well, I'll get to it because my locked-on player is going to be Carter Yakemchuk, because I think it's interesting. Not only did he not get that spot with Sebrango, because it looks like Sebrango might need to get some chemistry with Spence, as he might play a couple games to start the season in the NHL, but I thought it would have made more sense then to have Yak play with Donovan, because that could be a pair in the AHL if Sebrango is up in the NHL. And it's going to be interesting to see how Yakemchuk plays with another right shot defenseman. And it's going to be interesting to see who kind of takes the role of, I'll be the guy carrying the puck up the ice. Now, obviously, that's dictated by what end of the ice the puck ends up in and things like that. But I'd like to see Yakemchuk really take charge and be like, no, I'm going to be the offensive player. I'm going to handle the puck in this pair, and Lassie Thompson take a lesser role. So, yeah, Carter Yakemchuk's going to be my guy, number 58 tonight.
And this will be his 4th preseason game out of a possible 5. So they want a real good look. No surprise there. Jack, who's your locked-on player to watch?
Going with number 18, the German, Tim Stützle. I think this is he's looked good all preseason. He really has, I think. He just hasn't scored. He can't buy a goal, which is a theme, unfortunately, with Timmy. So I'm looking for him to create and put an exclamation point on offense and not just create chances that look like they might have a chance to go in. I want to see some finishing out of 18. And I think tonight's the night. Again, don't know who St. Louis is dressing, but he's had some looks all preseason, and just it's looked a lot like last year where he just can't buy a goal. So I'm going with 18. I know it's an obvious pick in a preseason game, but I think in these ones too, it's interesting when they don't have the rest of the NHL guys, right? Like no Cousins, no Pinto. The whole middle 9 is not playing. So it'll be interesting to see how much they use the top line and how they look. Like, are they just going to mail it in? Are they going to try and get some chemistry going?
Brady ain't mailing it in at home.
Well, Brady mailing it in is different, I think, because he's not going to be out there throwing haymakers, I would imagine, in a preseason game. But you never know. I would just like to see that line get some offense going and get some chemistry, because I really hope that that's the top line to start the season.
Jack, I'm glad you brought up Tim Stützle, because I find this interesting. Tim Stützle is the highest points per game against St. Louis when any other team in the National Hockey League. In 8 games, he has 7 goals and 5 assists. So talk about finishing. 7 goals in 8 career games against the St. Louis Blues. Last lineup note, I'll just say I'm looking forward to seeing Jorian Donovan. We're pretty high on him throughout the summer, and he was another guy that didn't get a game for the first time before being sent down. He's recalled, and he will be in the lineup tonight. Stay tuned on Twitter at Sens Central. We will find out what St. Louis is thinking for their lineup tonight. I hope they dress as close to an NHL lineup as possible. I want to see these bubble players for Ottawa go up against tough competition and see how they do. But how are the Senators Stars going to do this year? We'll discuss that next. And is it too early to worry about the Senators' lack of 5-on-5 scoring? Only 2 5-on-5 goals through 4 preseason games. You're listening to Locked On Senators, your team every day. All right, boys, it is game day, and it is an 8 o'clock start. I already know the comments are coming, so let's address them. Ian Mendez has posted that the Senators are going to stream the game from their website and are hoping that all technical difficulties will be dealt with and we'll get audio with the video. But if you're looking to watch tonight's game, you can find that on the Senators website. TSN 1200 will be broadcasting the radio feed as well. Again, reminder, just because it's so strange in preseason, it is a central time zone game. So the game will start at 8 o'clock Ottawa time. Jack, we've been teasing it. You talk about 5-on-5 scoring being your biggest storyline, but are you concerned at the lack of offense so far this preseason? Or are you going to take a page out of Martian's book and say, wake me up when the regular season starts?
I'm probably going to go against what Martian said, just because it it's the exact same team with the same coaching staff. Nothing more has changed in that regard. So when it comes to the 5-on-5 scoring, like, we got to remember they generated a lot last year. The discrepancy between their analytics at 5-on-5 and their actual production was terrible. I think they finished 31st or 30th in the NHL in 5-on-5 goals. And it's a miracle, quite frankly, that they made the playoffs so comfortably with those numbers. So it's the finishing. So to me, what I've seen so far in preseason, for the most part, is the ability to generate, the ability to get in those looks, but just not the ability to finish. And I think that's concerning. Not that I'm saying it's a big issue, but it's now a theme. Like, we're into the second year of this coaching staff, again, with the same players, a very identical lineup to what they finished with last season. And the problem against Toronto was offensively, they couldn't finish. They had so many looks in a lot of those games and just didn't get enough goals to beat them. So I think it's not a concern. It's not like a ring the alarm yet, the panic button, Pilsy, but I think it's on the radar for sure, because I'm even thinking in the game before it went crazy against the Habs, like Pinto and Amadio had a 2-on-0 and they didn't even get a shot on goal, or a 2-on-1. You know what I mean?
I think that was shorthanded though.
Yeah. So, that's a good point, but it's just the issue is kind of rooted in their whole play overall. But at 5-on-5, they need to be able to produce if they want to take the next step. And to me, I look to the big boys to do that. That's why I'm keying in on the top line tonight. Because again, there should be no excuse for on the road against a team that is, the St. Louis Blues are good. If they're playing their big boys, still a team I expect Stützle and Tkachuk and Zetterlund to be able to score against and produce offense. And even if it's a tough matchup.
The Ottawa Senators made it clear that one of the stats they were targeting when acquiring players was 5-on-5 offense. So, Jack, let me ask you this. Between Dylan Cousins, Fabian Zetterlund, Jordan Spence, and Lars Eller, which one of those players do you think will have the biggest positive impact on improving 5-on-5 scoring?
It's a good question. I do think it's Jordan Spence. I do, because
nice.
How many times last year, and Matt Paolo was good. He was serviceable and certainly an upgrade on what was there before. But I do think that there were times when the third pairing was on the ice, you just knew no offense was coming. You knew nothing was happening. Jordan Spence is an offensive defenseman. He's just very also good in the defensive zone. I think that was the book on him, right? And he just kind of got, pushed on the way out with Brant Clark and Drew Doughty in LA. You ask any Kings fan, he just wasn't used properly. So I think him having that offensive touch to his game is going to help that third pairing, where you don't need to play Sanderson and Shabbat all the time in the offensive zone. You can throw the third pairing out there with Clevin and Spence, ideally. Now, I know that obviously Zetterlund is the big one. I just think Spence is new. He's brand new, right? He hasn't played a game yet in the regular season. We know what Zetterlund is. Zetterlund, to me, if he's not finishing, then it's more of the same. And that so far has been the book on him, that he can't finish. Cousins did help their 5-on-5 offense when he came early on, and then he kind of trailed off a little bit and wasn't so good in the playoffs. So I think it's going to be Zetterlund overall, hopefully. But if it is him, then that means that things have worked out. I'm pretty bullish on Jordan Spence and the way he can impact the way the lines are able to roll at 5-on-5.
We're going to get a look at both Zetterlund and Spence tonight. Two guys we didn't mention are locked on players, but it's big opportunities for both, like Spence being listed as the top defenseman in this game on the right side. And then you're looking up at Zetterlund, and I'm sure he was pretty fired up for this day trip to St. Louis, seeing that he's going to get his opportunity now after Giroux spent all of camp up with Stützle and Tkachuk. So I'm excited to see what Zetterlund can do, and I know he knows that this is a big opportunity for him. We've been asking Jack X factors going into the season, and you teased by telling us, hey, it's one of the stars, man. It's one of the stars. And we said, you're not picking the stars as the X factor. You're going to narrow it down. So who is the one X factor on this team?
Tim Stützle. It's got to be Tim Stützle. He's been everything that I think Sens fans could have asked for since he's been drafted and more. He's the best player in that draft class. He's leading the class in points. Like, he's in such a stacked year, in such an important draft for the Sens. The return on investment in Tim Stützle has been perfect. But if they want to take the next step, get to that next level, he's in that time in his career right now where he needs to we're going to figure out what Tim Stützle is going to be in the next 2-3 seasons, because we know that he's a 70+ point guy, but can he get to that 100-point echelon? Can he get that much higher? Because you look at every team in the league, every top team in the league, they have a guy up the middle of the ice in all situations that can do everything and put up points like no one's business. I'm looking at Barkov on the Panthers, obviously. You could even go to Sam Bennett on the Panthers. Matthews, even in the division, let's just stay in the Atlantic. There's Braden Point. I'm blanking on other teams, but even Nick Suzuki to an extent. He had a great season last year. So I think the pressure on Tim Stützle is, when Staios and Green are harping on internal growth and we have the answers within, it's not just the depth. It's not just Pinto and Cousins. It's Tim Stützle being the highest paid player on this team, going out and getting point per game and finishing and having more than 20 goals a season. So it's not that he's been bad. He was great last season. I thought it was his best season in a couple of years, to be honest, overall. But it's just that next step. Does he have another gear? It's not a bad thing if he doesn't, but if he doesn't, then there's a whole other issue to address, because he's their guy for the next little bit here. And I think the same can be said for Tkachuk, but I'm just going to put it on Stützle a little bit more, because I think Tkachuk he was banged up last season. It's kind of not too sure what he'll be able to bring offensively in a full year when he's not hurt, and with the Olympics, you just never know. But I think with Stützle, like, we're at a point in his career where it's time to either take the next step, like, even looking at Draisaitl, not just making the comparison because they're obviously Germans and picked third overall, but I think it was around this time in Draisaitl's career when he started to get, okay, wow, this guy's getting 50 goals a year, 100 points. Playing with McDavid helps, but it's that time in a career, you're 23, 24 years old, that a player really takes that next step. So I think we saw it in the playoffs too, and that's what I think is exciting. Stützle elevated his game in that first round. He was awesome. I just want to see that all season, because he had so many stretches last year with just no points, real drought. Tkachuk, the same thing, like had that 10, 11 game goalless, pointless drought. Like, that can't happen this year. So I think if they want the 5-on-5 scoring to turn around, the slumps can't happen for guys like Stützle and Tkachuk. Those are too long, and I think it'll hurt them this year if they don't figure that out. So that's why I'm focusing on the Stars. It's Stützle's season. I'm really curious to see what he can bring.
Timmy's got to shoot the puck. That's the main thing I think everyone can agree on, himself included, I would assume. Now, Jack, you mentioned you're bullish on Jordan Spence, another right shot defenseman. I know you're bullish on Carter Yakemchuk. What is your realistic expectations for Yakemchuk this season?
I think he should start on the team. I don't really see a reason that listen, his camp last year really turned heads, I think, for everyone, right? It was a bit of not an off the board pick, but raised some eyebrows. You guys were there in Vegas when he was picked, and fair to say it was a bit of a surprise. But once you look at the tape, and he's a 30-goal defenseman, like he's got a crazy shot. He comes into camp and he rips it up offensively, but then they don't even give him a sniff. They send him right back to junior. I just think that it'd be difficult to not give him a game even to start the season, especially with Jensen out, right? Like, you can't not give this kid a bone, essentially. But I understand
perfect opportunity with Jensen out.
It does feel like that, yeah. Like, you're not shoehorning him in, and I think he'll be slotted well. I agree. It'll be good to see him in a depth role tonight if that's what ends up happening. But there's an opening. Like, these three guys that are playing tonight are playing for 2 spots, right? When you think about Jensen being out, let's assume he's out for the start of the season. So I would love to see him start the season with the Sens in the lineup on opening night, even if it's in Tampa and Florida. It's a tough road trip to start, but I mean, it doesn't get easier. You're going to be a playoff team. You hope to be. That's where you want Yakemchuk playing. I think realistically, though, he will spend more time in Belleville this year than he does in Ottawa. And I don't think that's a bad thing, but he should be the first call up, first guy there. Because you talk about offense, that's his game. You need to score goals. That's his game. If he's not getting caved in defensively and an absolute liability, which I don't think he has been, then why not throw him in there? Because you need offense. And this is clearly a guy in the offensive zone that makes them a better team. So it's just kind of, when they talk about internal options and the option is right there for us, this could be a guy in your lineup. I hate to do this again, but look at the Montreal Canadiens last season. Lane Hodgson changed their offensive game because he was just kind of given the keys to do it. I don't think Yakemchuk is going to bring that necessarily offensively, but he's got the chance to do it. He can ideally maybe get paired with Sanderson, and then you could slot Zub a bit differently. I don't know. I think that's stuff they got to figure out, but I would like to see Yakemchuk start and play in Ottawa at least for the month of October.
So I like where your thinking is coming from, and it would be fun. Now, Dano asked on YouTube yesterday for me to clarify my take on it, because I do get excited at the thought of Carter Yakemchuk going, but if Nick Jensen's healthy, I just don't know where he slots in. And you got that right side locked. And I'm not bringing in a guy like Spence and then having him sit in the press box for the first day. That would be reminiscent of his usage in LA. Not that he was scratched last year at all, but the fact that he wasn't getting reps as a potential offensive producer from the back end. So I think that if you're looking at a hierarchy, you're probably for me, I would rather see Yakemchuk than Matt and Palo. We know what Matt and Palo is. It's perfectly serviceable, but is it special? No, there's no X factor to him. That said, he's not playing ahead of Zub for me. He's not playing ahead of Jensen to start, the Shabbat-Jensen pair, and especially if you're Travis Green, it's just not happening. And then I give Spence that inside track. Like, even Erik Karlsson played in the AHL. Thomas Chabot played in the AHL for a few games. Like, there's no rush, and I do get a little bit excited at the thought of Yakemchuk playing 9 games or less and then having 3 years on his entry-level deal where he's able to be an NHL player. I think in the rise in cap world, it just adds that much more flexibility for other positions on your roster. One thing I wouldn't mind them doing with Carter Yakemchuk, and maybe Pilsy, you're on the other side of this. Remember when Alex Formanton made the team? It was a junior year, so it was a bit harder of a decision, but they kept him around the team for about 2 or 3 weeks practicing. He didn't get into a game, but that way you're seeing the night in, night out of an NHL life. And I think that could be beneficial for a week or two to start the season. You wouldn't even do it for the Florida trip? Just say, hey, you want to go see what the champs look like? You want to go see what Tampa looks like? Go take a look from the press box.
Get a Sportsnet subscription and play games in Belleville. I don't think this is your top prospect. I think having him not playing is the worst option you can have. I get what you're saying, Ross, but also Formanton was not their top guy, and there wasn't as much at play. And a young defenseman.
It was junior too, so it was like, hey, if you send him down, that's it.
Yeah, there was a whole different scenario and circumstances there. Whereas this, I want Carter Yakemchuk playing as much as possible, and the route for that is him playing mostly in Belleville. I think he's had the carrot dangled in front of him with the preseason, and they humbled him a bit. I would assume after last year's preseason, he's probably like, man, I nailed that. There's no way, especially when he looks at the roster and he's like, I'm pretty sure I beat out Travis Hamonic and JBD for a job with that performance. I can't wait to be playing in the NHL. Sonk, you're going back to Calgary to play junior and work on the rest of your game, because sure, scoring highlight reel goals in the preseason looks nice and you and your agent probably love it, but we've got more that we expect from you than just being able to do that. And we want you to work on your game. So the best way to do that is in Belleville. And I think nobody's really thinking that Yakemchuk will start in the NHL if Jensen is healthy. Like you said, just the slotting of it doesn't make sense. So yeah, I will remain patient, Pilsy, and let's Pilsy patience. Almost messed that one up there. Let's
Should
get
have done
him
slower. You weren't patient enough.
Yeah, I wasn't patient enough there. Let Carter Yakemchuk play 25 minutes a night in Belleville, top power play, and let him hone his physical skills up against men too. I know we talked about Clevin, hasn't quite figured out his physicality, but I'm sure Clevin would tell you learning to play the pro game in Belleville for a bit was beneficial for him. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Carter Yakemchuk, but overall, I'll say I'm pleased with what I've seen, because he's been able to carry the puck. He's been able to control the pace of play in the offensive zone, and he hasn't looked bad defensively. So all things you're expecting from Carter Yakemchuk so far.
Going to be exciting to see him tonight in the lineup against St. Louis. It's an 8 o'clock Eastern start, streaming on the Senators website. Jack, you fired up for the postcast or what?
I'm excited, man. We won't have one tonight, but yeah, fired up to talk, break down the games. I'm not used to doing these in the daylight, man. In the morning, this is a different vibe, but yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. It's gonna be an exciting season. Such a different feel going into this year.
And everybody's already following you on social media. They can find you on Twitter at Jack Richardson, but just lose the A there on Richardson. Jack Richardson on Twitter. It's almost as bad as Pillsy having to put number 1 at the end of his.
I'm so mad at Brandon Piller. I think he hasn't tweeted in years, and I think his last tweet was a Sean Paul music video retweet. So that one's not getting a lot of use there. So I had to tack on the old number 1 at the end of that.
Didn't you DM him asking to buy his account?
Yeah, no response. So if people want to bombard him to work on a negotiation, maybe we can get that going here.
Love it. Pills, any final thoughts on today's show?
Final thoughts for me is I called Florian Jackguy a pigeon in our last episode, and Habs fans were very quick to get on me. I will admit, hand up, I was not familiar with his game. He did have a nice AHL season. I guess I was more saying in relative terms to how important of a prospect he is for the Habs and how important of a prospect Carter Yakemchuk is for the Ottawa Senators. And I was lashing out a little bit. I was emotional. I can admit that. So Habs fans, if you're still watching this, merci beaucoup. But I will take that down a notch. Pigeon maybe was a little insensitive. I was not familiar with his game because, man, that guy can chuck him, and it seems like he's got some decent skills as well, opposed to his brother.
I can't believe you went there.
Yeah. Sorry.
Jack, any final thoughts on today's show?
Just looking forward to seeing the Sens again tonight. I think in a non-Bash Brothers style game, I think it'll be good to just see the line. Again, I'm really looking forward to that top line. It's time. They got to do it. We talked about it all summer. They gave Zetterlund the contract. Let's see it tonight. It's got to happen now.
Love it. Final thoughts from me. Tickets are now available for the GLEBE Central Pub Shuttle, $18 round trip. The tickets are on their website, GLEBECentralPub.com. Just click Sens Event Bus, and you will get right where you need to be. All October games are available, including McDavid coming to town on October 21st. For today, we say goodbye. Jack, thanks so much for joining us. For Brandon Piller, I'm Ross Levitan. Thank you for liking, watching, listening, and engaging with the show. This has been another edition of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.